Okay, we can,
Yeah.
if y'all like, we can get started.
Sounds so close to me.
Huh?
It's like it becomes real. It's like,
Yeah.
With the horse. There we go. So anyway, I appreciate y'all showing up. Tonight is just an organizational discussion, planning meeting. We didn't have a speaker. It was very laid back, mainly because we went through so much to get the conference pulled together and everything. We're kind of, we're moving into the holiday season. And what we thought we would do is start getting an early jump on next year. Both the big event and what we're gonna do with this monthly event. So if you're here, I'm just gonna assume that you're interested in helping us do that stuff next year and making this into something a little more structured, a little larger, something that's gonna grow. But first of all, how many of y'all did make it to the conference? How many, so you didn't, 3 or 4 of you didn't make it at all, right? So that's what you missed. Slightly bigger than what we're doing here. We had the Palmer Center, we had a 25,000 square foot room. And it was, I have to say, it was pretty amazing. And we had an amazing team of people that, keeping in mind that we only had 16 weeks from the concept to putting on the event. So, what is that, 4 months? 4 months? 4 or 5 months. It was, we had 2 days. We had the main sessions during the day, and then at night we had a concert on Friday night, and then Saturday night we basically raided a bar and everybody went crazy. Place called the Brass House. Brass House. We pretty well took it over. We owned that place. Very nice little place. So anyway, this is actually that's Paul Baffis from the Chamber of Commerce making an announcement there. But we had 3 screens. And again, I'm not going to be presentational with you. I'm going to talk with you like you're the committee, the team, that you're insiders and that kind of thing. So we're not doing a fancy thing here. But we had 3 screens, and those things that you see there are Tesla coils that were used. So that evening, in the evening, this is Michael Potter. He's an old friend and
Part of the space mafia.
part of the space mafia, a legend in his own mind. No, a legend in our field. One of our local guys here. So anyway, I was just showing everybody what they missed at the conference if they weren't. All right, so this was the main hall. These coils were used that evening. This turned into a dance hall that evening. An architect used those. Those are Tesla coils, so they were shooting off lightning later in the night and stuff like that.
Playing music.
And they played music, and I got stuck in a metal cage with 2 go-go dancers, and I'm sorry.
That sounds awful.
It was terrible.
The sacrifices.
Yeah. What was funny was we got into the cage, and they turned on the lightning, and the 2 girls turned away and started taking pictures, and I was standing there looking really dumb. And the lightning was wrapping around us and all of that. It was just really neat. The evening event, which was called Lift Off, I think there were 20 artists that were doing live paintings in one part of the room. And it was very much like a rave type feeling, like a burner type thing going on with the twirlers and this very, it seems all very modern, but I was having flashbacks to the 70s. So, it was a really interesting event, I'll put it that way. And then we had an upstairs lounge for the VIPs and people that were maybe not into that. We had 3 bands, and 1 DJ that played. Then during the day, we had our main sessions, and we opened with Richard Garriott. Then we had Robin Gattens, deputy manager of the space station. Then we had what we call Star Talks, And by the way, Michael, tonight this is sort of like more of a team meeting than a presentational thing. We're just kind of.
That's good, because I missed the event as well.
Yeah, so this is very casual. Everybody's getting updated, and we're going to talk about maybe what we're going to do in the next year moving forward. So it's very laid back. The idea then was we had our STAR Talks, which are the space, science, technology, art, and research talks, which are our version of TED Talks. Those of you who were there may have noticed we had full 3-camera shoots going on. Those are going to be edited, and they're going to be coming out over the next year. And let's see if I can. So, for example, this is Jason Kessler he's the in charge of the grand challenges at NASA, doing a STAR talk. And it was really very TED-like with a little Madonna mic, I call him. And Robin Gatton's from the space station doing her talk. And then their couches set up. We had 4 panel discussions. These were 17 minutes long, 20-minute block, 3-minute introduction, 17-minute talks. And it was very interesting because a lot of the interactions with the speakers, very rarely do people who are running conferences actually call up the speakers and say, this is what I want from you. This is what we need you to do. This is sort of a guideline as to how many words we want per slide. This has to be aimed at this kind of audience. Those of us who do talks like this, you don't usually get that, but we did that. And we had Mathieu Godot, who was our amazing French superhero who managed all the speakers. And, it was just go time. It was we got a lot of comments about the professionalism of the event. And these are just random, by the way. We're going through the downloads right now, hundreds and hundreds of photos. So these are just the ones that have already been cropped and all that. So there's no formal presentation. These are just the ones I happen to have that are in a finished enough state to show. So we had these speakers. This is one of the bands. So we had like the psychedelic treatment of the whole New World's imagery going on, and it was just, there are people who came and went who had no idea what they had been to, guaranteed. But we knew that. That was part of the thing. But on the other hand, including guys like people in the bands and stuff, they were like, we want to get involved, we want to support you guys moving forward, this is incredible stuff. Keep in mind, the entire idea of the conference was that it was a sample platter. We didn't have enough time to do what we're going to talk about in a minute, which is what we want to do next year, which is an academic conference and things like that blended in much bigger. We gave a sample platter. So for example, while this was going on downstairs, there were 3 events going on upstairs. So there was a Women in Space 2.0 event. Our assumption being that Women 1.0 was astronauts, 2.0 was entrepreneurs and CEOs. That workshop was going on, very small but focused group of people. There was a crowdsourcing space workshop going on with about 10 or 12, I don't remember. I didn't stick my head in there. And they were talking about creating solutions for interaction, getting global interaction to solve problems on what we call the critical path or the space development matrix. And then there was the Holly Show. 450 high school students. It was insane. It was awesome. It was. The energy of those kids was amazing.
Stunning presentations, by the way.
They were cool. Yeah. I'm still catching up on it, but I mean the stuff I saw. And again, 16 weeks to pull together 450 kids. You're insane. You scare the hell out of me. So like this is one of the awards, presentations. Richard Garrett was kind enough to stick around and help do the awards, and just amazing stuff. And let me see if I have any more of those. Yeah. These guys, some crazy guy wandering around. But this, like their city, their design is behind us here, you know, that kind of thing. And they're, you know, it's not yet at the level of super academia or anything, but this was a first run, a first hit. And I think they're going to be getting better and better at it.
Rick, why don't you explain what exactly you challenged them with, time frame, and what the delivery?
Holly, why don't you explain exactly what you challenged them with, the time frame and whatever else they said?
Well, I would love to. So the students were, clearly they had to start when the school year started. So they were on a time crunch and it was pushed pretty hard since we had it mid-October. But they were required to, they had 3 choices for categories. They could do video, 3D model, or video with 3D model, and then they were given size requirements. But it's a project-based learning integrated project, so they would be using STEAM, incorporating the arts, science, engineering, math, technology, and they had to build a colony that would sustain 1,000 people, but thrive. And so kind of our goal, our New World's STEAM space goal was that some of the schools would be focusing on ideology and preservation of history or creating new traditions, while other schools would be focusing on agriculture and making a 100% recyclable community, and others were strictly focusing on CAD and design. They all still had to make models nonetheless, but so when the students walked in the room with all the exhibits and presentations, they would be encouraged and kind of forced to look at all these other aspects. They either didn't have time to do or just chose to focus on other things. So they would really get a whole picture how everything is needed and essential to build an off-world colony. So it was great. The kids had a great time and I was constantly blown away by their work. They did an amazing job. And then we had 100 4th grade students, our Young Pioneers students, who were allowed to come and exhibit. They all built their own colonies, and then we put those in the main room with New Worlds Conference so they could exhibit their work. And then I think they left by 1 o'clock. They were pretty tired. But it was great to have the little ones in there too, getting to interact with the older children. Mm-hmm. It was a lot of fun.
So, just a lot of different school kids representing a lot of different areas.
Those were the really serious ones.
Yeah, I could tell. Trying to show, I think this is the hallway. Well, yeah. I mean, there was just a lot of activity. We had a lot of exhibits in the hallways and just.
Oh yeah, and one of our best, originally this wasn't quite planned this way. We were planning to just have the students upstairs the whole time, but then we had such a large amount of interest that we needed to honor fire code with the Palmers. So we ended up creating a rotating schedule. So half of the students would be downstairs with the New Worlds Conference, and half would be upstairs. And that was a beautiful thing to have happen. So they could actually see where they can be headed and what their options are and be totally inspired. And it was wonderful. I hope we will do that forever from here on out.
So I'm just gonna randomly show you a couple of images just to give you a feel, and then we'll have a conversation. That was Richard Garriott. This was Tom Moser, major NASA figure who was reporting on a study that NASA just did about how to build commercial facilities or use commercial partnerships to build facilities on the moon. Again, this is like the awkward home snapshot type stuff, but Patrick Gray, who's with a group called Waypaver Labs that's working under money coming, I think, from Peter Thiel and some other folks on lunar-based design. Old friend Jen Caravella from Shackleton, one of the commercial space companies. It was very interesting, again, since we're doing Inside Baseball. Originally, we had a session called New Space Pioneers that were going to be 10-minute commercials. And our friends in the new space commercial industry were invited, and they were going to give 10 minutes straight out latent commercials for their companies, for potential investors and things like that. And because the event was so new, and because we were juxtaposed across from what was called the IAC, the International Astronomical Conference in Jerusalem, which is the largest conference in the world. Most of them were over there pitching their wares. And then like 1 week before the event, they started calling. Hey, Rick, you got a slot? Want to come talk? Maybe we can give you a sponsorship, stuff like that. So Caravalla was one of those. Moon Express was another group that called. They didn't show up, but they gave us a sponsorship, $2,500, things like that. So this was very good. So there were 4 main sessions, 2 per day. One was the moon, one was Mars, we'll come to that. One was crowdsourcing, and one was free space. And those are the 3 areas that New Worlds focuses on, and then one of the mechanisms, i.e. crowdsourcing and what we call the space development matrix. We are non-denominational, or as a friend of mine said in a very facetious moment, we are gender neutral when it comes to heavenly bodies. You can imagine that kind of friend. John Mankins gave a talk on space solar power. John is one of our advisors for the organization. Let me see here. I'm going to show a couple more and then we'll get into, I think this is one of the contest. Yeah, one of the contest things. Like I said, these are unsorted. Anyway, so we had a lot of great speakers, and we were using controversial speakers. That's Alex McDonald, one of the strategic planners from NASA headquarters. Jason Kessler again from NASA headquarters. What I did there was I went after the rising rock stars of NASA. These guys are going to be the leaders of NASA in the next 10 years. And they were thrilled to be there. Is that Jim Logan? Nope. Al Globus led a session on space colony design for free space. Yeah, I'm trying to show, there's 1 or 2 that were kind of, and what we did was we shot with 3 cameras and we also saved their PowerPoints so that they can be edited. Jim Logan was awesome because he basically told us how full of whatever we are. And it was brilliant because he is the reality check. He's a doctor. He used to be the doctor that would approve whether astronauts were qualified to fly to the space station. So he knows his stuff. And I remember the really memorable slide that he put up. He shows this picture of a bunch of people standing in front of a habitat on Mars. And he puts red X's over all their faces and on the habitats, and none of that's going to happen because the radiation's too high, this and that and the other. And he gave us a very serious reality check, and that's exactly what we wanted. Wanted to shake people up, kind of get you off your, just being uncritical in our thinking.
One of the things I really enjoyed about
Yes, feel free to dive in, though.
his presence and one of the follow-on speakers, and I don't remember who it was, who basically addressed all of his objections and said these are areas we just don't know. These are this long-term exposure we simply don't have the data for, but we've extrapolated, and that we should take his warnings to heart, but we should also consider that we need to go out there and find out. And I thought that was an interesting counterpoint.
Yeah, the counterpoint. And next year we might want to set up some sort of debate or something like that of these things. So anyway, that's, without showing you over and over and over again the same things. The awards were just awesome. The kids went nuts. And so that was pretty well the basic event. Everybody that came up to us afterwards pretty well said, you're onto something, you have to do this more. Because see, one thing, and I was talking to somebody recently in our field, and Michael will appreciate this, and those who've been in the field for a while appreciate this, is that most space conferences are for space people. They're in industry conferences. I call it a mobile church. We go listen to our priests, we all hang out in the congregation, then we go to another place, listen to our priests, and we all, amen, amen, amen. And then, and it's a very small church. The thing that we were able to do, probably more than 50% of those in attendance had never been to an event like this. This was their first time. Some of you, it was your first time sitting there and seeing this stuff. And so everybody that spoke was coached that you're going to have civilians in the audience. Now, it was kind of funny watching some of the old timers like Dr. John Lewis, who wrote the book Flying in the Sky. He reduced his equation count to only 30, but overall, everybody was great. Now, one thing you guys didn't know was that sitting in the back of the room were these guys. That's the Deputy Prime Minister of Luxembourg. And there were 6 people from Luxembourg in town. And there were some private meetings going on and all that. He was here, this is what I did Thursday night. He was vesting the new Luxembourg consul. And they chose Austin rather than Houston. Most of your consulates, your large consulates, are in Houston and Dallas. But Luxembourg has chosen to go here, which shows they're a very wise country. And this was at the Texas Club, the Austin Club. Pardon?
They like to keep it weird.
Yeah, they do, and they appreciated it. They particularly enjoyed the 6th Street experience.
So where are they going to be, or are they setting up shop after?
It'll be a part-time thing that somebody's
Okay.
going to roll into their office, use a part-time consul.
I also, at the wrap party, spent some time talking to a representative of the UAE space program.
Yeah. So we had some interesting people slip into town, and yeah. So that's kind of where we are. Now I'm going to talk a little about where we're going to go in the future, some ideas, and there are two or three things just to give you guys updates on where we're kind of going or where we are. We realized that New Worlds Institute and New Worlds, we flew in a guy named Daniel Gaspers. Daniel has been running a meeting like this in Amsterdam since February last year. February, is that right? Yeah. They normally have 60, 70 people show up. They drink beer, and because they have a little bar in the back, and they do this, and they have speakers come in every year, or every month. And they have created a template for how to create a meetup, a hashtag New Worlds Meetup. They have the banner and all of this stuff. I think theirs says hashtag Mars or something like that. That's how they got started. And they're working on a manual, and they're working on a template to be able to have other groups spring up around the world. And so Daniel came in, and they're sharp, they're young. He won the Phillips Prize for Innovation last year. Really just, they're goers. And so they're looking at helping us clone this and start this activity. But we realized that the New Worlds name is more open, more public, more about doing outreach and things like that. So the idea then is that New Worlds will be the entity that puts on the overall event next year, especially things like galas and the parties and supporting the education stuff. And then within that will be a deep inner circle, not deep inner circle, but an inner circle called the New Worlds Institute that will be able to keep its academic orientation and credentials. And the Institute, you may not know, we've already filed for our first NASA, what are called SBIR grants. We're a registered organization that's going after academic research grants. The first one is from the Space Development Matrix, which Jason Aspiotis, those of you who were there saw him run the panel, big, tall Greek guy, former Raytheon, like former as of yesterday. The Space Development Matrix, for those of you who don't know, is the idea of creating an interactive online community of people that are identifying and solving the basic questions of what you need to live on the moon, Mars, and free space. In the space field, we have things that are called TRLs. And a TRL 1, for example, is somebody's given a paper on an idea. A TRL 9 is they're using it to process water on the space station. And you can, pardon?
The readiness level.
Yes, technical readiness level. John Mankins, who I just showed you, who is one of our first advisors, invented the TRL concept. And he's a big supporter of what we're doing. And 1 through 3 is theoretical. A 3 through 6 means it's in the lab being tested. And a 6 through 9 is basically being tested out in the field or is actually in use. Or as I like to say, the guy who did 9 is your lunch speaker. You know, they're the ones who already figured it out. So 1 through 6 is what the space development matrix is going to be focused on. You know, what do we need? It's the punch list for living in space. How do we get to the toilets to flush? How do we, and I've said some of this before, but how do we, basic stuff, how do we paint the walls of the habitat in a way that doesn't interact with the exhaled carbon dioxide so that 6 years later, gas doesn't come out and kill everybody in the habitat on Mars? All right, and this goes back to the assumption of the New Worlds Institute that in 20 years, people are going to be, you know, this is our core assumption. I'm sorry to repeat this, but I guess we need to repeat these things. In 20 years, someone is going to step off of a spacecraft onto a new world or a place that they created with the intention of living there. And that is the goal of the New Worlds Institute, is to prepare that person. We don't argue about rockets. We don't do politics. We don't do advocacy. We focus on creating the culture, which is why you have dance parties and art, things like that, and the engineering for those people to be able to survive and thrive. So that's kind of what our goal is. And we believe that over time, by providing the fertile area within which that can occur, people will self-identify and draw towards it. And some of them will draw towards the center, and some will draw towards the periphery. And there'll be artists and engineers and designers and entrepreneurs and all the people you need. And that they will begin to self-identify and create in their minds and within this society of people a culture that will enable them to go. Now, there are discussions, and I'm not saying we're going to do this, but there are already discussions of people who are sort of self-identifying and coming together who want to talk about financial mechanisms. You've heard about Mars One, where the people are, I guess it's a lot of, I don't know what it is, but it's an organization where you can buy your ticket to go to Mars. There will probably be a session next year at New Worlds of people talking about creating financial mechanisms. Now, the way we'll do it is we're not going to declare, hey, we're the guys doing it, come join us, give us $50 for a year for the rest of your life. What we'll do is we'll put on a panel discussion and bring in expert Wall Street investors and people like that who could present their craziest idea that they couldn't talk about at Wall Street, but they can come talk to us about how if we had 1,000 people putting in $100 a year in 20 years when Elon Musk is ready to rent the new Mayflower, you know, all these people could vote and 20 of them will go on the new boat that they pay for. That's the kind of way we want to do it. We're not going to say it's us, but we believe that coming out of us will be those people if we create the fertile ground for that. Does that make sense? Okay. And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to jump in. This is very casual. Okay. We have a call in. No, I'm kidding. So there's all of that. Now, the local group that we have here is a way of allowing people in Austin to self-identify and get involved. And so we've done, as you know, we've done 3 or 4. This is the 4th one here.
Yeah, it's the 3rd one here, but the 4th total.
4th total. So we've done 4 of these, and you know, I spoke at one. We had Tom Marcusek from Firefly was the last month's we all saw, and it was a great test, and we've kind of gotten a feel.
This is our 3rd one.
Pardon?
This is our 3rd one.
This is our 3rd one, but we also had the ATX one, which is
Yeah.
over at UT. Right, that's what you're referring to, yeah. So, and they're very interested in continuing to partner with us. This is the MSTC, Masters science and technology,
Yep, commercialization.
commercialization, great. Speaking of paint, one of them is working on commercializing NASA thermal paint, which is designed to absorb heat and then slowly release it. And they're commercializing that to, I think their first test was a doghouse, which was kind of cool. So we're gonna be working with that. So, first order of business is I wanted to mention to y'all that, you know, we would love it if you're interested in signing up and getting involved in helping us put on these events on a monthly basis. I'm gonna be working with Holly, who's up at the desk there. I think it's Holly?
Yes, it's all.
Yeah,
Oh, good.
we both have great names.
It'd be embarrassing, sorry. So that this will become a regular, like the third Wednesday of every month, there'll be a space gathering. And as we've had at the other meetings, which I'm sure Michael was probably disappointed, normally we have wine and beer. So, we have cookies this time.
A different sugar intake.
Yes. This is casual tonight. So, so that's what we're looking at doing. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I think one of the things we may want to start with is what type of speakers would this, do we think that, so far that we've heard, we have people who've gone to the conference and the type of speakers they've heard. Do we think that we want to attract that will get the most people, potentially get the most people that have been in space, are involved in space now or want to be involved in space? And
Yeah.
that, I think that might be a good thing to throw out, because then people may have some.
Well, what kind of speakers do you guys want to hear?
I want to hear people that are on the cutting edge of the frontier, pretty much. People that are on the interface between now and what could happen. So theoretical speakers that have basis in science with an eye towards the theoretical future, I guess. Like most of them, right? In the space sector.
Yeah.
Is people that are looking towards the future for.
Since you brought it up, you're taking notes, right? Great.
So one format that's very popular around Austin, there's a group called Astronomy on Tap that has astronomy-focused talks. There's a group called Nerd Night, which has a variety of different interest talks. And their format is generally to be, it's in a bar. There's this big stage. There's room for people to sort of gather and talk. But they have 3 speakers, and each one gets anywhere from a 10 to a 15-minute slot. And that tends to draw an interested, broad audience because you have 3 different topics that are going to come up in the night, and as opposed to having a single speaker where some people are like, I don't want to hear that guy, I'm not going this week. That's something to think about.
The challenge would be then you have to manage 3 speakers. But
Yeah.
I would love to see, I think it'd be cool to see that agenda to kind of get an idea of what they've got.
Oh, absolutely. There's both monthly events and
What their spread is, you know?
there's several other monthly events too that have that format. So
Yeah.
I'll put together.
Does it get noisy, like are people at the tables talking?
No, it's mostly at the north door. That's where, if you're familiar with that, it's an open performance space. And they put out,
Should we talk
Pizza.
and
I was talking to you about it
the-
earlier. I like it.
they're usually pretty good
Let's go.
about,
I'll take you.
Okay.
the crowds are pretty good about recognizing the speakers speaking and let's not have conversation. And they offer a period of time between speakers.
But the north door is a bar, basically.
It's a bar.
But it has a separate back room?
Yeah.
It's a big space.
They have a
But it has a
stage.
back room, or is it all in the same?
It has a small back room. The big rooms, so Astronomy on Tap regularly draws 300 people.
Really?
Yeah.
It has a stage where they do the
Second
presentations in the
Tuesday.
main room.
And Nerd Night draws anywhere from 150 to 300, depending on what their agenda that night
Damn, we
is.
got a target.
Yeah, maybe a little trick would be to you become a speaker.
Actually, I was going to suggest that you can talk.
I think you totally should to Astronomy
Yeah.
on Tap.
It's true, they're looking for speakers all the time.
Yeah.
Yes, they had nerd night. You would be
I'm
for
good friends with
nerd
the
night.
Thanks.
coordinators, so I know that push in.
I bet that would.
Well, no, feel free, feel free.
It's a compliment.
Yeah, and Michael's a good speaker,
Maybe they.
but we need to have our act together to draw them too. If we're gonna make it rain, we need to have our
Yes.
bucket ready.
Well, so I think the question is that, you know, to Chris's point, is the north door worth looking at and seeing, and is that a better place that's more centrally located? You don't have to mess with parking, it's.
I would say when you're drawing a larger crowd, yes. But if you're
Maybe
gonna
that's
have
a 1
8
year
or 10
from now.
people,
Yeah.
Where's the
or
north door?
30 people,
It's on
East
Fifth
side.
and Brushy.
Barely east.
just on the other side of 35, around Fifth Street.
Would
Okay.
an evening slot be better than like a lunch slot? I mean, because, you know, sometimes you
I don't know of any
I think so.
lunch slot.
Yes.
But I'm just wondering if the evening would compete with too many other evening, you know, if there's like just.
Well, that one is a monthly thing.
Yeah,
It's
they're both
like a
monthly.
once a month type of thing. I go every month. It's one of those things, it's just like, it's something new, it's free. It's put on by the North Door and Astronomy on Tap. And Astronomy on Tap has had a couple different venues. They've been at Easy Tiger, they've been at Midway Fieldhouse, and now they're at North Door.
Yeah.
So they've grown
Yeah.
over time.
And there's sort of a graduation path where people tend to start at something like Spider House, which is a small coffee house and has a fairly small performance space. And then as the audience exceeds capacity there, they migrate to the North Door, or Buffalo Billiards also is a thing. There's a,
See, I'm fairly confident, and especially among the people that we all know, that if we had a venue and we knew, let's say we knew that January on the second Thursday, we were gonna have an event, we could get a name. We can get some people that should be able to draw. You know.
I will say one thing, they get their speakers from the pool of graduate, it's run by UT's graduate program for astronomy, so.
well, Astronomy on Tap,
Yeah.
the Nerd Night is open.
Yeah, I was talking about Astronomy on Tap specifically. They have, they pull from their graduate students, or people that have PhDs or that are experts in their field, and then they take their expertise and they apply it to something in pop culture. Or like, I've seen like 2 or 3 talks on the science of interstellar and how it relates to the theory of general relativity and stuff like that. That's what I meant by saying like the theoretical talks that are tied into like popular culture that like, so that's that, and they do consistently go to a huge crowd.
Well, you're touching on something. See, whenever you put on something like this, you basically got two things you can do. You have celebrity or topic. Those are your 2 draws, you know, and you can use the topic, like Interstellar, that's a draw.
We're very.
Actually, one of the things I've seen with Nerd Night in particular is that when they have a topic night, they tend to draw fewer than when they have a spread of topics. I think.
Oh, so they'll talk about 3 different topics. on the
3
same
different
night.
topics, completely different topics. But when they have a
Well, that
theme
makes
night,
sense.
there tends to be a small crowd.
Yeah, of course. You've
People
got
choose,
3
I'm not interested in that.
to choose from, so, cool.
So now we just need a facilitator to be in charge of the meetups.
And you're busy.
And, and it's,
No, you are
it's not
busy.
me. But
What? Did you almost raise your hand?
Well, I mean, I think that
Or were you just
point
scratching
is,
your head?
no, I think what we wanna work on is who can work together to facilitate these and put these on. And
Right.
I've been doing it here, working with Holly, so I don't mind continuing for the next bit as long as we, you know, they're supporting all of them.
Well, if somebody wants to take it on as far as going down and visiting that bar, what would be interesting is if these guys have it like on the first Tuesday and then on the second Tuesday we moved in, then people would be like once a week. I don't know, maybe that works for, I don't know if it works for or against.
I think it probably works for. I think there's a call for more of these.
Yeah.
So what night is the astronomy one and what night is the
and they
nerd?
advertise.
It's either the second or third Tuesday. They've moved more than once because of either weather or like whenever they were at Midway Fieldhouse, there was like an NBA's final game and they got kicked out.
Okay.
So, like, they've switched around, and then Nerd Night is Wednesdays.
The second Wednesday of the month. Or maybe the first.
It's the what?
It's like the second or first Wednesday of the month.
Okay, so you wanted to show it so we could go check that out.
I'll take your
All
hand.
right, so we'll go check out that and take that part on.
So,
The one thing is I can't be doing a lot of the operational stuff. I got a couple things to do. I got asteroids to conquer.
Well, and these
It's the
guys
third
have
one.
good
It was
connections,
last
so
week.
they can get you looped into that as well.
Yeah,
it's the third Tuesday, if you wanna write that down, it's the third Wednesday.
The third Tuesday.
so we need to find out the owner's name and go straight to the owner.
It's actually two post offices.
Who owned the bar?
Oh, no, who coordinate the?
No, I want the owner of the bar.
Oh, yeah. One of the things that he loves to do is encourage what he considers nerd culture in Austin.
Oh,
He has
we
the
are
events.
right there, man. Look around.
Yeah.
Look at the posters. Poster children of the nerd.
Simple that remark.
But again, I think if we knew that we had
I agree.
third Tuesday every month,
Yeah, that's been a little of the challenge when we did this. It was short notice. We got the days that we could, and it wasn't the exact second Tuesday of every
Yeah.
month or whatever. So I think if we can work with them and get that, that'll help the cross-marketing and pollination of these other groups
I would
too.
agree.
They also have trivia nights and that sort of thing. I mean, if we really wanted to do some press and take posters and kind of make handouts, each one of us can kind of maybe be responsible for our different geek events that we go to and making people aware of what's going on here and get some of the
Right, I
outside of
agree.
the box, right? So Chris goes to his geek nights or trivia nights or whatever, you have, you know, maybe little one sheets or a digital something. I'm just thinking about marketing.
The Internet has kind of a merch table in the back for posters and t-shirts.
Yeah, and we could affiliate with them, I mean, we're no threat.
And they
Quite
also have
frankly,
a
I
great,
think those groups too would be good, obviously, for New Worlds, and it would have been great to penetrate some of those groups prior to, but we'll know for next year.
Well, for next year, yeah.
Nerd Night also has
Sponsor stuff.
a very close relationship with the Austin Public Library, and that would be another group to get on your side.
Libraries, I remember those.
They used to have the paper things.
Yeah,
All of us have a really cool.
So, okay, well, so that's great, so, we will move ahead on that. What I'm gonna ask too is if you're interested, I didn't bring a notebook or something, but we should have, get your email addresses. We'll just form a little Google email list internally of people to work on this. And then you can sort of like help pick what you wanna focus on.
Can I,
Yes, ma'am.
I think I can probably create, and correct me if I'm wrong, I have all the keys in here, a Google spreadsheet and Google Drive and just make it open and then post that in the blast off link that meetup group as a comment in there, and then everyone can go in and put their information.
Right. If you guys can work together to secure the place and lock it in, don't laugh, and lock it in. I and Michael can help me, and you know, we'll go out. You shouldn't have walked in the room, did you? You are so screwed.
Yeah, and actually, go to a bar. Wait a minute.
Yeah, I think that's probably a really good attractor right there, just bar.
Bar,
It's
right,
really
right.
friendly,
But
you'd
we
like
can go out and call up some of our friends and say, hey, you're gonna be in Texas. Because a lot of people come through Austin, they come through Houston for meetings, just say pop on over, you know, and we can start with who we have. I mean, we can get, you know, Garriott. Wait a few months, we can recycle Mark Cusack from Firefly.
Well, I definitely understand the need for cutting edge, but I also think personally, and let me hit on this, I think it would be interesting to hear some of the other more traditional companies talk about where they're going with innovation. For example, David's company has, you know, was the airplane company, if I can, right?
Yeah, Curtis Wright, we invented the
So,
airplane.
and
That
they're
was
now
wild.
going into looking at space.
It's those guys, Wright, Flyer
But
thing,
it's,
yeah.
but that's sort of the point. So I mean, I just found out one of our other folks in the company who represents a lot of the business units that do a lot of space stuff just moved to Westlake like last week, and he couldn't be here tonight because he's off, you know, a meeting. But we have an initiative in our company, and I literally was looking at the Frost and Sullivan report on the small satellite market projections today, and you know, all that financial stuff that says this is how many launches and here are the companies. On the flip side, to the way out, this is what we're thinking, this is the art of the possible. I'd love to see how the money can start to flow. What are the business opportunities, that sort of stuff, because that's what gets people from the, there's the giggle factor, then there's the visionary, and then there's the dollars just flowing like crazy, and it propels all the space development metrics forward. And I get the TRL thing too, so everything we do in our company, it's measured TRL because it's defense and space. And we take all of our products to TRL 7, and then they go into some sort of operational test with our customers at the higher level, and then eventually it's deployed into TRL 9. But that's our entire thing, is dollars, dollars, dollars to take technologies from napkin sketch to TRL 7. And I think that's a place where if we can see the dollars flowing and have people talking about it or connecting those dots, it starts to become a business development and networking opportunity to say,
So you're,
hey, nice. So just a little bit outside the new world. I made a bunch of great contacts and I've already got some, I'm already like, hey, there might be a business opportunity here because I talked to Jim Logan for an hour.
yeah, right. So what you've just taken us to then is this idea of a sort of a synthesis.
Yeah.
And if, let's say we were doing 3 talks.
Yeah.
So we have maybe a new space company or a space company talks.
Right.
And then somebody talks about something that's completely different, and maybe that's our segue now for something completely different. And we have somebody talk about a movie or something like that, and those are all on the bill together. Which is kind of what we did at the conference, in a sense.
Yeah.
We had space artists, and we had music, and we had the people that are planning, like Brent Sherwood, who's our solar system architect at JPL, came in.
Well, I think, short term and long term, right? I mean, we need low hanging fruit, we need an entrepreneurial city, we need the idea of Davids of the world who are acquiring companies, looking at new technologies, looking at innovation where someone here, if there's a gap that could be filled that we may not know exists, that there's a solution, what can we create?
Great.
Yeah, because ultimately everything you talk about the next 20 years of filling that space development matrix,
Right.
that ultimately has to drive on commerce.
Right.
Somebody has to see a reason that we're going to sell that paint that doesn't outgas 6 years later and poison everybody. There has to be a reason for that. And if that's Bear, who sells their paints at Home Depot, and they decide to invest in it, and because they see some other application, that's important. And I think it's sort of that's the point. If you talk about the far-flung academic, the entertainment, it's The Martian, it's Gravity, it's Interstellar, it's sort of this new birth of lots of space films, Expanse coming out on sci-fi. And then talk about the commercial, the entrepreneurial, or the VC aspect. That's a great swath of programming
I like that.
in one night.
It's like, hey, this is like what it could be. This is how we gotta get there.
And it's
Yeah.
inspirational.
I like that.
And you might be showing up for one and you hear about something you've never heard about.
Right.
Like being there. Okay, so we're
Yeah.
agreed that we're gonna look for like a couple of speakers a night minimum
Yeah.
of very different kinds. Everybody,
Like a work together.
yeah, a synthesis.
That'd be like
Yeah,
on a central topic, but 3 different
Yeah.
approaches on it.
And we'll have the Monty Python slide that says, I know, so you don't read it.
Then the occasional Spanish English.
Nobody will expect that.
A naked man playing a piano. All right, so that works. And then, of course, we are gonna, we will be recruiting for New Worlds all the time. We are gonna be, let me jump over to that for a second. I wanna explain the kind of structure we're looking at. For New Worlds, the things we're doing are, everybody that registered for the conference is automatically for 1 year a member of New Worlds. Just automatically. Which means you get the privilege of getting hit up to give us more money. But you'll get all the announcements, you'll be part of it, et cetera, et cetera. You'll get discounts for next year's conference and things like that. When we get really sophisticated, you'll then get plugged into your local group and you can start doing your own data. We're paying Jaspers in Amsterdam to work on. Now, if you want to work on the Institute is going to be very much modeled over an organization I used to work with Dr. O'Neill called the Space Studies Institute in Princeton. And we really are, and again, I go over to Michael because he knows this history, but we really are recreating SSI in the 21st century. That's almost exactly the model, except they didn't have the internet, they didn't have makers, and stuff like that. But, so the idea of the Institute is allowing people of different sorts to work together, cross boundaries, cross industries, cross discipline, on solving the problems of living and thriving in space. So the Institute will have its minimum membership level will be called an associate. And there's a senior associate, and there's a fellow and a senior fellow. Fellows and senior fellows will be your academics, your people that are working in companies. Associates and senior associates will be pretty well anybody who wants to step up. And we're going to try to work out a way where you can buy your way in to some degree, but that merit will, if you're working on something. For example, when I got started, and I was a little, whatever I was, I was so thrilled to be able to, they were working on a thing called the mass driver. And they had decided to make this a flagship project, and they wanted to prove the acceleration rate you would need to launch a payload on an electromagnetic launcher from the moon into space, which happens to be 1,800 gravities of acceleration. So, the mantra of SSI at the time was, we can't afford to hire a big engineering team, but what we can do is we can afford to hire some top engineers to pay somebody else to mow the grass on Saturday, and they can give us those 4 hours. All right. Now, there's actually a major global benefit program, just had a big concert in New York. It's using that same thing, where people are putting in 4 or 5 hours and, to tackle hunger and things like that. So I was so thrilled because I got to stand in the corner. There are these major engineers, and I'm handing them wrenches and wire cutters and stuff. And they built this thing. It was about 2 meters long, about 8 feet long, and it was made of plywood and wire. And it was in an unused classroom in Princeton, and they did the tests, and they measured them, and they did the tests, and they brought in outsiders, and they measured them, and this thing just went, choop, choop, and we proved it. So now we knew you could launch from the moon using this concept of coils of wire with a payload in the middle. That's the kind of thing we want to enable. Now, back then, we didn't have these things called makers. We didn't have these people. Now we realize that's kind of what was going on, except it was like Freeman Dyson standing in the corner, all right, watching all this. So that's the kind of thing we want to do. Now,
I was going to say, so there's one other person that I think would be worth contacting, and his name is Aaron Healy, and he coordinates part of South by called Create, and I've worked with him for the last 2 years on Create. It's basically, and it's actually going to be in the Palmer this year, but it's inviting maker companies and maker clubs and maker interested people to exhibit as part of South by. And there would be a great overlap there.
yeah, and I think when we start talking about the conference next year, you'll notice we had some exhibits, homemade rockets and stuff like that. So I think we're doing that. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this part up and get into the conference next year because we need to let you guys go. So this sounds really good. And I think we have a group of self-interested people. Self-interested?
Perhaps self-interested.
Whatever works for you. The funny thing is, the reason I'm able to do what I do today, which is work with an asteroid mining company, we have 8 full-time employees in Silicon Valley.
And you're doing some amazing stuff. You need to announce a few things that you've done this week, by the way,
What do we announce? We're flying
reality.
we're flying the first VR camera on space station. We signed a deal with NASA on that. And we've got some other stuff we're doing. But anyway, the reason I got to do this, because I don't have degrees, was because many years ago, I started a club like this in New York City called the New York City L5. And we started having speakers. And what happened was, I got to hang out with important people to help them, you're going to be a speaker, and we help you with it wasn't PowerPoint back then, your 35 millimeter slide tray. 35 millimeter slide tray, no, kidding. Anyway, we only have a couple of people who won't know. But
I still have a few.
so I was able to do that and then become a volunteer for SSI in Princeton, and then I became media director there, and then I got involved, and blah, 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 blah. So this is what it can do for people by association and by hanging out with people. And we had it all scheduled, by the way. We would have a reception before. We would have a VIP, the people that helped sponsor it maybe 6 or 8 people that would help sponsor would go with the speaker to dinner beforehand. So they got some close proximity to the VIP who was flying into town with famous person. Sometimes that would be like, well, an astronaut or whatever, Isaac Asimov, or somebody like that, these kind of people. Then we had the big meeting. We put our credo up. Here's what we stand for. We did that part. Then we had our speakers. We had people set up. We invited other groups. Like if the astronomy club wanted to come sit up at our meeting, come on in, and then afterwards, we all went and hit a bar. So in this case, you're saying, let's do it at a bar. It saves a lot of travel. So it's brilliant. It's brilliant. And I think everybody's input is awesome on this. So now let's talk about, okay, thank you. What was your name? Blake? So we would love to have you involved with this.
Yeah,
I got it.
Got a poster? Good. All right, man. Thank you so much, Blake. Yeah, we're gonna move along quickly here. So that's what we're gonna be doing, and we need to lock in either at this place or at this other place within the next 3 weeks. We're not gonna have any more formal meetings. We might have a committee or team meeting.
Well, we do have November something down as a date, but I don't know if that's too close to Thanksgiving or if we know if we'll have.
I don't know if we want to have, do you guys, do you want to have another speaker this year, or do you want to wait until next year? I mean, we have this place.
I'm always a fan of more.
I think we should keep it going, yeah.
Okay, so we will do.
I think so,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Keep it going.
December's gonna be hard, but I think we can definitely do November, maybe have a cocktail or happy hour for December for members where it's low key, and then it's January, pick back up again.
Right.
Well, I don't
I
mind
like
getting a
that idea.
speaker, we could, there was a guy at the conference who was an astronaut. He said he wanted to speak and he lives in Austin, so we need to.
Well, and Raven too, who isn't here this evening, and who now works at Honest Dollar, they worked on NASA satellites as well. He worked there was an engineer there, so
Okay,
he might.
so
be
let's
able to
right
speak
away-
through
Let's right
David, and
away,
We got quite a few people.
yeah, let's right away get that together then, make an early announcement because it's Thanksgiving. You were about to say something?
No, I was gonna say, in December, I know a lot of the meetup groups, this is the first time I actually went to one, they do just their holiday party meetups, and I think one of them is
Refresh aggregate party.
there's that, and then there's, what is it, like Web Bash or?
That's
like
refresh aggregate party.
Huge, yeah, it's just huge, and that's.
Well,
the first
speaking
one
of
I
that,
went
we'll talk about our annual event now. Segue, now for something completely different. So, based on last year, this last conference, it was, as I said, a sampler of what we hope to do in the future. So the idea that we're talking about now, by the way, even though we're gonna be paying them off for several months, the people that did our tech are the best tech people in town. They do South by. I mean, the weekend we ran our show, they had 7 shows on the road. They were the coolest people. The guy who was in charge, his house burned down on Friday of our event. He was in Bastrop. He lost one of those houses. The guy showed up and ran the show for 3 days.
And now he's doing the film festival.
And now he's doing film. He's amazing. It's like this little Willie Nelson looking kind of roadie guy. And but they're a major shop, and they're called Nomad Sound. The accountant from Nomad Sound came up to me afterwards and said, "We love this. You're onto something." He says, "We do 30 shows a year. You got something here. We want to be your partner next year." So they're in. We also have some ladies who work on other events. They do the Dell fundraisers, things like that. They have asked to come in and work with us next year. And they will do the soup to nuts show part, down to coffee breaks and all that kind of stuff. They're specialists at that. So if this will come on, which it may or not, maybe it will, doesn't matter. So they're gonna come in, they're called creative consultants. And so the idea for next year is to go with a 3-day event. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Thursday and Friday, this is tentative, this can shift. Thursday and Friday are an academic call for papers conference. This really does harken back to the original SSI conferences in Princeton. Now, what we used to jokingly call those conferences were they not ready for primetime conferences. In other words, you could come in and talk about KAS, crazy ass stuff, but do it in a legitimate way. It became a point, to the point, actually the proceedings from the SSI conferences sell for over $200 on eBay now, the hardback. And I told that to John Lewis, and he said, I've got 8 of them holding up my laptop. I said, that's just not it, buddy. So what would happen would be, you come in and you'd go, someday I might want to own an asteroid. And you'd have people like Freeman Dyson and all these other people standing up in front of the room going, really? And then they would grill you and you'd have an interaction. And a lot of us, Diamandis, myself, a guy named People Ward, all these other people, Roy Garver, who's probably going to be Hillary's person, all these people came through that. So we want to create that environment. So that's going to be starting, and I think we might be able to get some NASA funding, hopefully some aerospace funding. What do you guys think about it? But there's another section that may be more applicable, so I'm going to tell you about that. So the idea would be that we have the New Worlds Institute Space Engineering Conference. All right, so that'll be Thursday, Friday. Saturday, because we're going to have those people in town, we'll get a bunch of them to stick around, and Saturday we do a public, like we just did, a public conference designed for the general public to come and hear some of these great, cool things, done in a way that's more accessible. And we'll have the star talks, and we'll have everything that you guys saw at the conference. So it'll be much more of an open event, that kind of thing. In parallel, Holly will be, because everybody went nuts over the student stuff, City of Austin, a bunch of people have gone crazy about it. We got some NASA people that are maybe wanting to throw some funding at it. So STEAM space, science, technology, engineering, art, and math space, which is a brand we pretty well own right now. We should trademark that, by the way. And the Cities in Space design contest, or whatever it turns into, probably 1,000 at least.
That's our goal, for at least 1,000
Yeah.
students.
And an all-day event.
6th through 12th grade.
6th through 12th grade, 1,000 kids in a separate, it might even be a slightly separate venue. It might be in the same building if we can get it, hopefully in the same building.
Yes.
Definitely in the same building. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We will do it, and we will do it that way. And so that event would be going on in parallel with judges flowing back and forth from our speakers and things like that, because everybody likes the young people. And we're going to keep the rule of $15 for students, for college students that we have this year. And we're going to do better at reaching out to UT and that, because we want them in the room. $15 is about the cost of paying for the chair and the rent of the place to have in the room. We're not making money. Let me see. Oh, one of the things we're going to do we may do this on Saturday, we may do this on Thursday, Friday, is what's called First Base. First Base is a design contest. We have it written up, we just couldn't implement it this year. By the way, we have the entire agenda already written for the 2-day event, because we originally wanted to do it this year and we couldn't get to it. And so it's already done. And I'll let you guys, we'll put this out for everybody to see. First Base is designing the first 1,000 person community on the Moon, Mars, and free space. So there are 3 categories. Each one of them has 10 points that the people presenting have to hit. Radiation, life support, but we're throwing in some stuff. Business plan, how do you do it? How do you fund your facility? Now, the First Base contest is going to involve everybody at the conference. They're going to come in, they're going to give their presentation. Then they're going to be Shark Tanked. That's going to be so much fun to watch. We're going to have our row of celebrity experts in the front tear into them and just really, so they're going to have to be combat ready, and they're going to be coached to be ready to go through this. They're going to have gone through a process. Then everybody involved in the room will vote, and we're gonna go live on the internet next year. We're gonna do live webcasts, because by that time, if Daniel Gaspers and his team have been effective, we're gonna have chapters around the planet who are gonna wanna tune in, like Amsterdam, something like that. So then everybody will vote, and we'll have like an American Idol moment. The judges will have weighted votes, and then everybody can vote in. And then at the event on Saturday night, which I'm about to describe, we will present awards. So Thursday night might be a film festival night. Let's say maybe The Martian of next year comes out. So we'll do that Thursday night. Friday night will be a gala. The gala is called, I wish I had the picture, it is so cool. The gala is called the Space Cowboy Gala. It is a STEAM Space celebration and fundraising event for STEAM Space. We're going to celebrate the heroes of the past. So we'll have people from Apollo, Mercury, some of the real space cowboys, shall we say, and cowgirls. I got schooled. I was trying to make it like gender neutral, and I got schooled. And I was like, just calm down. You've bending too far over on that one. Just call it Space Cowboys. So that's going to be on Friday night. And it is, I was also schooled on trying to get people in Austin to wear black tie. So what we've decided was to go with the STEAM thing. So we're going to call it, and it's sort of STEAM Space. And the theme is, imagine you're going to a formal affair on Mars in 2050. What would you wear? Because it might be that we're going to do it the last weekend of October. So the timing's going to be right in there. It'll be the weekend of 21st or the 27th is what we're looking at.
That's grade X.
And I wish this picture was up, but I have a great picture of what this is going to look like. Anyway, so that's the idea of the gala is the formal affair. That's going to be VIP, upscale, and then Saturday night will be the rave dance party for the young people, the younger crowd, and we'll get a big broad audience that way. Dance party gala. We're going to be looking at workshops. We're going to be looking at people who want to take on creating workshops. Like I said, we have Women in Space this year. We're going to be talking to our friends who are involved in the Texas community. About 2 years ago, a gentleman at Texas A&M put on a workshop for all the Texas space entities. And everybody said we should do it again. So we want to do something like that. So there you go. That's the basics. And we'd love you to get involved with us on, and we want to do a display hall for aerospace, get the people in, you know, and have artists painting and stuff like that. Any questions? Any thoughts? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I want to share something quick. So there's an interesting conference in defense, just someone uses as a point of reference, that's done every year in Michigan around the Detroit Arsenal. So it's ground vehicles. But it's done with NDIA, so it's one of these, it's the National, I forget what it stands for, but it's a National Defense Industries Association, chapters all over the place, along with the R&D group for the ground vehicles. What's interesting about that particular conference, different than almost everything else there is in that whole, in the entire defense space, it's policy people, it's executives, it's program managers, it's senior engineers, and so it has this interesting mix of business and government, and a couple of things they do. There's a couple of big keynotes that set out, this is broad policy. And then there's program managers, like you'd have from NASA, coming and saying, here is the, you know, what they call it as the advanced industry planning briefing. It's this is what we're going to be doing over the next 5 years. So here are the opportunities, and these are the sorts of things we're looking for to help us get there. And then there's an entire set of tracks of papers, where people are actually presenting papers in multiple different chunks. But the interesting thing about that, there's also a hall, and then there's a lot of just networking time. So it actually, over the years, it used to be like, yo, here's a 15-minute coffee break, turned into a 45-minute break, and they put all the food in the hall where all the other exhibits are to encourage lots and lots of networking. And for myself, and I've been presenting at that now for 6 of the 7 years it's been going, we end up getting, even in budgetary constrained years, we've still had 600-700 people there, up to over 1,000. And then, the Secretary of Defense saying this is one of the most important things, we're authorizing people to go to this. And it's because it becomes sort of a nexus of policy decision, state of the art, what's possible, get these people who normally wouldn't talk to talk. So all the different types of stakeholders. And I throw it out as an example of a place where people aren't just doing, as you said, sort of going to church and getting a rah-rah. It's also an opportunity to actually make some decisions and make left or right turns or whatnot, sort of in those halls during that 3-day event and form the connections, or actually say, yeah, actually, I'm gonna get my guy over here, let's do a quick brief for 10 minutes, and off we go. We've actually have a new course of action based off of those 3 days. So it's almost like a big working meeting.
Chris, I really enjoyed that. Go ahead.
I'd actually say that was my one major disappointment with the conference this year, was that there was very limited space for socializing. Outside of the bar at the end, there weren't gathering places for food, where people would naturally sort of congregate.
Yeah.
The socializing was mostly the smokers who went out back.
Right. No, you're right, and that was one of the issues that the Palmer Center isn't like a hotel where you have all the couches and stuff already there. You had to actually pay for we got billed for every chair in the hallway and everything like that. So we ended up the last day going, literally the day, the last night when we were setting up, we looked at it was empty and we were like, get us some tables in here, get us some chairs. And they rolled in the few that we had, so you're actually right. And we need to be thoughtful of that. One thing you're on to, we threw this Space Pioneering Summit earlier this year in Washington, which was a policy summit. If somebody wanted to focus on that, we could underlay that, something like that.
Part of it is it's setting a tone and saying, this is what, the one that I'm talking about, at the very beginning, we get somebody going up there who's in charge of the R&D command for the Army and says, this is the 30-year plan.
Yeah.
This is where we're
Be careful,
going.
though. We can't compete with, there are space conferences, that's getting real inside baseball.
Yeah, no, I understand, but they do that as like the keynote. So this is the 30-year plan, and that's the beginning, and that's it. And then everything goes down to much more tactical. And it helps frame everybody, this is where we're going. And I'm not saying that you should replicate that. I'm saying there's a couple of things out of that that are interesting in that you have a policy theme, you have senior engineers, you have business folks, you have, on the same stage, you've got the program manager from the government and the CEO from Lockheed.
Yeah, no,
having a discussion, or however it is, but the idea is you mix those people together who don't normally mix. And you get a synergy out of it, so it's just...
That's what we did at the start. I mean, we had people who literally hate each other.
Yeah, and that's great, because you get to talk.
Yeah, we had like Romney's advisors and Hillary's advisors, people from GWU over here, and then we had these guys, and then we had Aerojet and Boeing and Lockheed Martin and ATK.
Yep.
And human spaceflight and the FAA, and they were all in the same room. Buzz, everybody else in the same room. One way to achieve that might be these side room workshops.
Yeah.
Where you bring in 15 decision makers, and their job for one day is to work on a policy thing. And then the next day they're coming in and they're speaking on stage, but they're over here doing this kind of quiet.
While you're all together, it's an opportunity to...
So for us, for example, I'm going to tell on myself a little bit, but we just happened to borrow a room from the Chamber of Commerce on Thursday for my company to meet with people from Luxembourg.
Right.
Okay, so
that's
that kind of thing starts to magnify, overall. So that was separate from the event. I don't mix nonprofit with for-profit. And you just touched on something else, and I forgot to mention this. Megan, who leads our management team for the Institute, is also one of the people that founded a thing called the Space Business Plan Competition. And it just spun off from the Space Frontier Foundation as an independent organization like this week. So they might be able to put a track here.
Interesting.
So you would have an all-day space business activity going on, which is completely entrepreneurial.
Yeah. which we need to have.
And they're very sophisticated. They give away, I think last year, they gave away $100,000.
You know, it also would be interesting too, so there's a couple of things is, for kids to be able to pitch at an entrepreneurial track as well, right?
Well, they would, I can say that there were a few teams that were completely ready to do that.
So that would be, you know, interesting, what is your company in the,
High school
also have
business
some of the
plan.
kids judging some of the other pitches from the adults, because what happens a lot of times is adults get up there and they can't dumb it down to, I mean, like bring it down, and it's confusing for adults, and then they think, oh, you don't know what I'm talking about. If a kid can't understand it, you shouldn't be presenting it.
Well, they do that here.
So-
They do a kind of shark thinking meetup here where they bring in like a couple high school students to join the business and researchers, and they let them talk. And I love that idea.
You should talk to Jack. Her experience with putting pitch together.
I will. I'm gonna be more involved this year. This year was my 25th high school reunion, so I couldn't, I mean, I was involved early on and then was not as involved as I wanted to be. Yes.
One thing that's gonna be critical then, just to wrap us up here, first of all, by the way, the t-shirts are $20, the posters I should be charging for them, they're about $10 each, but I'll give you just for showing up, take one. But buy t-shirts, we have a lot. People have to step up and take responsibility and get involved. All right, Sloan has already stepped up. Holly definitely stepped up. You've stepped up, Janiqua stepped up. You're about to, I can tell, I just feel it.
I'm figuring out what I can do, how I can.
We also, by the way, have a policy in the New Worlds Institute of, if you bring us funding, we have a 10% funders fee. It's flat across the board. Anybody who brings us hands-on fingerprints funding, you know, you introduce, you don't have to close it, but if you sit me down with somebody that I've never met before and I walk away and we've got a check for sponsorship, we'll give you a 10% funders fee on that. Totally legal, but you'd be surprised how many nonprofits don't do something like that. So, yes, sir.
I want to throw out how I can collaborate in the future with either the conference next year or Institute or the meetup. My name is Machiavelli, founder of Biohack Austin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, biohacker space and incubator that we're building out here. The first thing I could think of was the ways of raising funding. You mentioned a panel next year as a possibility. And when I was in Hungary this past July, I talked with Michael Lane a lot about
I know Michael.
how to develop a blockchain approach, how to create a decentralized autonomous corporation, which I don't know if these are familiar things or not.
Hyperloop.
Hyperloop?
I think they're doing Hyperloop.
They want to do
decentralized
awesome.
corporation.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But I could definitely be on a panel to talk about that.
We would love that. Now, I'm going to hit you with two things because you just, God forbid, don't freaking raise your hand. Or you're in trouble.
Don't raise my hand.
No, I'm kidding. It was a joke. It was a joke. No, it just means, because now you've got me excited about your idea. First of all, on the biohack, we almost had a session on bioengineering in space. We got that close to having a session. I'm personally a fan of the idea of why do we need, 4 meters of soil radiation proof when maybe we could change our genetic makeup to repair the damage.
I was going to mention that.
That there are bacteria that live inside nuclear plants, and there are people I know who are working on it.
Humans have radiological immune systems that could be studied and boosted.
Yeah. So then you could wear a skin suit on Mars and still be.
And then
totally cool.
terraforming, wearing suits.
I mean, even if you're not fixing 100% of the radiation damage, but if it meant that you could knock it way, way down because your ability to repair was a certain percentage capability, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
So, yes, that part, the biohack. And we would be, I'm sure, comfortable in the conference saying, okay, Biohack Austin is going to take 1 hour of the conference and help us flesh that session out.
Yeah, that would be great.
So there's a collaboration. The second part that you mentioned would be the space development matrix and putting you in touch with that team, which, by the way, is also going to have biological components within that matrix that need to be worked out.
Okay. What do you mean putting me in touch with the space development matrix? What exactly is it?
Well, we have a team that's actually developing that project.
Okay.
And they're going after NASA grants, and they're trying to structure what that internet interactivity is gonna be to solve these problems. So there's like 3 or 4 people on that team, if you wanna talk to them.
Yeah, that sounds great. I'll send you an email.
I'm trying to keep them disciplined. They're starting to wander off into space bitcoins and.
I've got 2 or 3 other things I want to mention. There's this friend
Yes,
I
sir.
made at Ephemeral, which is the Seastaying Institute's Burning Man festival they have on the ocean.
Yeah.
His name was Joseph. He also goes by Michael. At this point in time, I don't remember his last name, but I read online that he went from working at NASA to working with DSI, and he's still working on his bacterial directed evolution thing.
Oh, I know who you mean.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to talk to him again.
That was the one I was talking about, who was working on the,
Okay. Yeah, he
Microbes.
worked with NASA Ames.
Yeah.
Research Lab.
yeah.
Okay.
Big guy with the, yeah.
Yes, with the hair.
He likes to rip phone books in half at parties, but anyway. that's all. It's a demonstration of physics. He does it. I actually watched him do it. It's
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
cool.
So
So,
you had one more copy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I did
Yes,
have
sir.
more. Let's see, I think it was, as
Deeper,
far as the
deeper,
virtual
deeper.
reality thing
Yeah.
goes, I was part of the Kaleidoscope Virtual Reality Film Festival,
okay.
which ended, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, I think. It was the first virtual reality film festival in the world, and Renee Fennell is a great guy. Maybe you guys could get in touch with your VR camera thing.
With DSI.
Yeah, that way he could promote it through his film festival next
Well,
year.
we can talk about that off.
Okay, okay.
When I'm wearing, oh, I am wearing that hat. Well, never mind.
Yeah, Rick said
Thinking of the world's hat. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for coming. And we're, we will what was the date?
I'll post it tonight or
30th?
tomorrow.
I think it was the 30th.
I want to say it is, but I,
November 30th. So please clear calendars. Let's stay in touch between now and then. We'll put a Google list together.
yes, I will put a Google list together with the contacts I've got thus far, get the date up on the meetup and post all that up there.
So semi-officially, depending on how you guys feel about it, you kind of now compromise the Austin crew.